what you don't need.
I mean, it's fair question.
Because I'm going to shove some of that back here, way back.
Okay. Uh-huh. Hello? Hi, how are you? You should see, interesting. I don't see you in the waiting room. Are you in the, does it say you're in a waiting room? Oh. Because I have one person in the waiting room, but it doesn't look like it's you. Okay. If not, then I'll send you the invite. I can send you an invite from within the Zoom because I'm already in it. And then I can just, and you can just click on that. Oh, wait, I see you, I see you, I see you. Nope, I see you. Well, I'm letting you in right now. There you are. Yep. Cool. Oh, of course, absolutely. Want to start with that? Okay, here, I'm going to switch over to, I'm on the phone, but I've got headphones already in my computer. I'm going to switch over to that. You and I are the only one in the Zoom right now, so we can talk through that, and I'll show you what I've got up, and I'll put it in the right order for you. Okay, bye. Okay, Aaron, can you hear me? Nope. Never mind, there I go.
I made a mistake. Should wait until you were done.
Aaron, can you hear me?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Great.
Okay, is it too loud?
No, it's fine. Okay, so you want me to start with the crest?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll just go back and forth between the outline. First we'll do the map of the Pale, then the church picture, and then what is this one?
Bilibin.
Bilibin, yes. Sorry, I can't read my own writing here. And then I don't know how to say this, Direjabin or something to that effect. And then the military picture. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my one semester of Russian language.
Yes, well, I have no semesters of that, so I appreciate
And then,
the
of
help.
course, yeah, the visual, the military conscription.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so I can't, now where am I? Do I need to, how do I see myself?
Let's see. All right, I just sent you a pop-up that should ask you to start your video. Did you see something?
Start my video. Yes. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Very good. Let me see if I can set something here.
Perfect.
Great. Okay. Just want to make sure I got that. All right. Okay. All settings are good.
Wonder of wonders.
Yes, I know. So we'll start with, let's see, I'm just going to make sure my screen share works okay. Okay.
Yeah, there we are.
Okay, great. And then we'll go, I'll just go back and forth and I'll scroll through this as you're talking and I can go back with that. I've got the map,
Right.
this, 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 and this.
You got it.
Awesome.
There we go. Good stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you want me to, so when it's, I have two screens here, so it looks funny to me, but I think what you see is what's shared and then you're kind of over on the side and you want to kind of just leave it in that mode.
Okay, do I want to put share screen on?
No, you don't need to do anything, but when I share, so let me just, let's go back. So when I share screen, what do
Right.
you see on your screen? Do you see what I've shared and then you're kind of over on the side?
No, I don't see me on the side.
Oh, okay. I think that's what other people will see, mainly the crest, and then kind of over on the side, they'll see you. So you're side by side. You don't see it and I don't see it, but
Okay,
everybody
so-
else will see it.
Right.
So if you look, and I have two screens, so I've got the crest over here and you over here. So mine's not even on the same screen. It's a little confusing to look at. So that's good. But that's fine. So do you want me to go back and forth to you or leave the screen share up since we can see you on the side anyway?
Yeah.
It's really up to you.
Just you make choices, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Whatever.
Just-
Remember, I want this to be a little kinetic.
Got it. Okay.
And I'm going to announce questions at the end
Okay.
and give you a
Yeah,
shout
if you'll
out.
say that, ask people to put them in the chat, and then at the end we can just go through them.
And everybody knows you at Beth Yeshurun, right?
They should know my name. I don't know if they all know my face, but if they've been on Zoom, they should by now.
And we're going to start right at exactly 10:30 or what?
So the one we just did at 9 o'clock, it took people a couple of extra minutes to get in since it was their first time in the class.
Right.
I've got 5 people who are already in, and there's a couple of more popping up who are registering like in the last 5 minutes to get the link. So we may need to wait a couple of extra
Okay,
minutes just to
real
get
dog?
everybody in.
Yeah, it's a real dog.
Yes, my lap dog. Yes,
Looks like a toy dog.
he's a toy schnauzer. Mm-hmm. Yes, this is where he sits all day.
He's happy you're home.
He's very happy I'm home. I left the house to go to volunteer at the food bank this week, and I was gone for about 4 hours, and he thought I had been gone a month.
He called his therapist.
Yes, he was beside himself when I got home.
So we have a guy at Brit Shalom,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Rosenstock, who's a therapist, psychologist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife and I joke that he has an alter ego named Dr. Wolfenstock,
Mm-hmm.
who was an animal therapist. And when we had our 2 dogs before they died, we used to always tell them, now, if you have any problems, we'll make an appointment with Dr. Wolfenstock and you can talk to him about it.
I think some of these pets could use that right now. I think they could. Although most of them are pretty happy, I would say.
I would say.
I think so. All right. I'm just watching my emails to make, I have one or two people who had a problem getting into the 9 o'clock, so I just want to make sure I'm
Well, you let me know when you want
watching
to start.
okay. Well, I'll start letting people in from the waiting room here, and we can get everybody settled.
Ah, a call of the wild goose.
That would be my husband in the kitchen.
There. Hello, how are y'all?
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
To this.
Morning, guys.
Okay, it looks like I got maybe a couple more people, but we'll start here in just a minute.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Hi.
Aaron, I think we'll probably have maybe 2 or 3 more join us, but if you are ready to get started, we can do that.
You bet. First of all, good morning to everybody who's here. Welcome to our virtual class. I'm Aaron Howard, and I'm not sure if any of the folks who have joined us this morning have ever taken any Melton classes with me at the ERJCC. Taught a number of Jewish history classes. And one of the things that I love about history is the fact that history is not about the past. Okay, it's not about great men, because there weren't too many great women in the past. It's not about military battles and wars. It's really about how we got here. And it's about enduring themes that keep coming up in today's society as well as in the past. And each week, the next 10 weeks, we're going to be studying the history of the Jews in Russia. One of the things that you're going to notice is that many of the themes that I'm going to touch upon in each of the classes is an enduring theme that comes up again and again and comes up in today's world. Now, the theme that is going to come up today is how do nations treat their minorities? And when we look at the history of the Jews, especially in Europe, we can see how various European history, nations in European history, have treated their Jewish minorities in the past. And that issue still continues even 70 years after the Holocaust to be an issue in Europe. How do you treat minorities? And it keeps coming up again and again. So I want to show you a crest of arms for the Russian Empire. Now, why do I lead off with this crest of arms? Because this Russian eagle goes back to 1497. This two-headed eagle symbolized an empire, the Tsarist Empire, that unified the East and the West under its wings, according to the Russians. In the middle, of course, there's a picture of St. George slaying the dragon. And that's a symbol of Moscow, Russia's capital. This is related to the idea that the Russian Empire was the successor to the Roman and the Byzantine empires. Now, before we study the history of the Jews in Russia, I want to devote the first class to what it was like when the Jews reached Russia, because there was only a very, very small number of Jews who lived in the Tsarist Empire prior to 1772. Now, it was Peter the Great's granddaughter, Elizabeth I, who refused a petition sent by Jews requesting that they be allowed to trade in the fairs in the Tsarist Empire. And Elizabeth I said, "I desire no profit from the enemies of Christ." So before 1772, basically no Jews were allowed to live in the Tsarist Empire in Russia. So most of you who think that you're Russian Jews or descended from Russian Jews, actually you're descended from Polish Jews. Poland was a country that was the 6th largest in area prior to 1772. In 1772 was the first partition of Poland. In 1793, the second partition of Poland. And in 1795, the third partition of Poland. Chop, chop, chop. Poland basically ceased to be a country, an independent country in 1795. And those of you who know something about Polish history know that Poland was divided amongst 3 great powers of the day: the Tsarist Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Prussia. And Poland did not become an independent country once again until 1917. And what happened in 1939? Poland was once again partitioned between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. Now, the 3 partitions in Poland brought 1.2 million Jews into the Tsarist Empire. on the western periphery of what was then Russia. Now you can see the map here. This is the Pale of Settlement. All of it belonged to Poland. This is where 1.2 million Jews lived. It was an undeveloped area. It was basically agricultural, far away from the then capital of St. Petersburg. And the dominant rule there, of course, was Polish nobility. And that rule was preserved until the mid-19th century. So what about all the non-Poles who lived there? Essentially, what were they? They were serfs. And we're going to get to that in a minute. What was the main economic situation of the people who lived there? It was agricultural. The export of grain, later sugar refining, and lumber. Now, Russia at the time of the partition was an empire, not a national state. The Russian Orthodox Church was dominant, and it had a strong tradition of anti-Judaism and supersessionism. I'll tell you a little bit about Orthodox Christianity, because it's different than the Western Christianity. It basically or the Russian version of Orthodoxy, basically was built around a warrior culture and a Russian theology that was as historical as it was secular. Literally, it was a vigorous combat and triumph. The Tsar was the living icon of God, especially after the unification of Russia in 1413. And that the Russian Orthodox Church had a special destiny. And that destiny was for the rulers and for the Russian nation. Orthodox Christianity became Israel in the church. So the very idea of the Israel of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac was foreign to Orthodoxy. They believed there could be only one Israel and one people of God, as there is only one God, and the church under Russian Orthodoxy stood itself as a witness for that one God. All right, if a church is supersessionist and anti-Judaism, how do you think it's going to regard these 1.2 million Jews who suddenly came into the Tsarist Empire? Well, one of the things is in St. Petersburg, which was the capital at that time, liberal and humanitarian tendencies were weak, and Orthodox and retrograde tendencies were strong. Remember, in Western Europe, this was just the beginning of the Enlightenment. We can honestly say, when we look at history, the Enlightenment never reached Russia. The government believed the Jews were a harmful element that disrupted relations between landlords and peasants. The Jews had no loyalty to country or sovereign, and that Jews were concentrated in unproductive and parasitical occupations that exploited the surrounding society. But, here's the big but, Jews could be made over by rational reforms. So when the Russian government, in its wisdom in St. Petersburg, which was far away from the Pale of Settlement, was debating what could they do with these 1.2 million Jews that they inherited from Poland, the basic tendency was, well, we make them over. Okay. Now, on May 7th, 1796, the Jews brought a petition in Belarusia. The Governor General had forbidden the landowners to lease the inns on their estate to Jews. And what was going on in Poland at the time, where many Jews made their money by leasing lands from the Polish landlords in the Ukraine, in Belarusia, and into the Baltic, because that was all part of the Polish Commonwealth. Okay, what did Jews do on the lands that they leased from these Polish nobility? They ran the inns, they ran the taverns, and they ran the land for the landlord. The Russians were not interested in that. What they did was they brought this petition to the Governor General because he had forbidden the landowners to lease their inns on their estates to Jews. As a result, a large number of the Jewish families who made their living on some form of liquor selling and innkeeping faced economic ruin. The petition asked, among other requests, for the right to be enrolled in the merchant corporation in order to pursue the liquor selling trade, specifically at that point in Riga. The petition was refused, but it was worse than that. In the ukase of May 7th, 1786, the Governor General attached the Jews to specific locations and created the Pale of Settlement. Now, remember I said one of the things, Russia was a feudal society, and you were born on a piece of land and you were tied to that land, particularly if you were a peasant. Serfdom was the condition of over 50% of the Russian peasants. Serfdom can be compared to slavery. You were born on a piece of land. You could not leave that piece of land. You could not go to the city and learn a new trade. You were tied to that land. The Pale of Settlement created a similar situation for the Jews in the Pale of Settlement. It limited physical and social mobility of the Jews. It excluded Jews from moving to the dynamic centers of industry, trade, and public life. And by the way, there were no or very few dynamic centers of trade and life in Tsarist Russia at the time. You know that Tsarist Russia is a huge nation, correct? Well, at the creation of the Pale of Settlement in the late 18th century, there were only some 1,000 miles of railroads in the entire country of Russia. So we're not talking about a nation that was a very dynamic economic nation. Limiting to the Pale of Settlement meant that you couldn't even take a railroad to a major city like Riga or St. Petersburg and try your hand at starting a new business. And we know from Jewish history that one of the reasons that Jews became economically well off in certain parts of Europe is because they were able to move to new dynamic centers of industry and take advantage of new economic opportunities. That was not the case in Russia. So the creation of the Pale decreased the chances of Jews contributing to the development of the Russian nation. It increased new areas of internal conflict. It loosened the traditional values built up through centuries of relative isolation in the Jewish community. But it eventually led to new patterns of thought, revival of Hebrew, development of modern Yiddish literature, and massive immigration, which we're going to cover in the next couple of classes. I mentioned that the leadership in St. Petersburg was basically very conservative and retrograde. I want to bring out an interesting character from Russian history, Gabriel Derjavin. He was a Russian member of the Senate who had never come into contact with the Jews. He was dispatched from St. Petersburg to Belorussia, which is to the west of the Ukraine on the periphery of the Pale of Settlement, to instill order amongst the new Jews who had become part of the Tsarist Empire. He wrote a paper called The Opinion of Senator Derjavin concerning the want of foodstuffs in White Russia by curbing the avaricious pursuits of the Jews, also concerning their re-education and other matters. What this paper was a plan that he submitted to the Tsar on what to do about the Jews who lived in the Pale of Settlement. He made the Jews scapegoats for the economic ruin of the province. In his paper, he wrote, "The economic pursuits of the Jews are nothing but subtle devices to squeeze out the wealth of their neighbors under the guise of offering them benefits and favors." He recommended that all the Jews be placed under the tutelage of a Christian official to carry out the work of transformation. The ukase, which is the same thing as a law, a proclamation, forbid Jews to keep Christian domestics, deprive Jews of the right to participate in city magistrates, made the Jews give up distinct forms of dress, and established a government printing office to print all Jewish religious books with philosophic annotations. In other words, any Jewish books, Jewish Bible, Talmud, commentaries, would all have to be published by a Christian printer and run through a government agency which would annotate any and all Jewish books with a Russian Orthodox slant to them. Now, this paper that he wrote led to the Jewish Constitution of 1804. It forbid the Jews to hold any leases on land, to keep taverns, saloons, or inns. Now, hang on, I want to go over this for 1 second because this is really important. I mentioned that one of the chief economic pursuits of Jews in Poland prior to partition was that they operated the lands, ran the taverns and the inns on lands owned by Polish landlords. It is interesting that the Russians did not displace Polish landlords until the middle of the 19th century. So essentially, they left the Polish landlords in place in the Pale of Settlement. But they broke up the relationship that the Jews had with the Polish landlords, and forbid the Jews to keep those taverns, saloons, or inns. It did grant Jews access to all public and secondary schools and universities. It also stated that all public and commercial documents had to be in Russian, Polish, or German. Now, what did that mean to the Jews in the Pale of Settlement? What language was most of their documents in, religious and commercial? Yiddish. So basically, it forbid the use of the Yiddish language among the Jews of the Pale of Settlement. Now, interesting that this Jewish constitution was not enacted. Why? What was going on in Europe at the time? The Napoleonic Wars. The French were marching eastward, and the Russians feared French invasion, and that the Jews in the Pale of Settlement would see Napoleon as an alternative to the Tsar. And we're going to study this in full measure in class 3. The last thing I want to talk about is military conscription imposed on Jews in 1827. Now, this photograph is a little later than 1827, but this is a photograph of 4 Jewish soldiers in the Russian army. Military conscription was not a general obligation on all citizens, but an obligation imposed selectively on different estates in the Russian feudal system and on social and religious groups. If you were conscripted into the Russian army, you served a term of service of 25 years. Conversion was openly encouraged, and the local community was made collectively responsible for fulfilling a quota of 4 to 8 recruits for every 1,000 people on the tax rolls. Now you can imagine the quota of Jews that had to be fulfilled for each of the Russian Jewish communities. Do you think it was fulfilled by the wealthy in those communities? No. It was fulfilled by the poorest. And what's not nice about it is that there were many, in many kahals, in many Jewish communities in the Russian Pale of Settlement, there were groups called clappers who would go and keep track of the number of Jews who were being conscripted from that community every year. And if there wasn't voluntarily, of course there never was voluntarily, the number of Jews who wanted to be conscripted, they would snatch Jews away from their families and bring them to the military to fulfill the quota. And that's something that happened for over a long period of time. Okay, do we have any questions?
So we don't have any questions in the chat, but since we have plenty of time, why don't, if you have questions, go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask questions.
I have a question. Were they able to own land to farm on?
Yeah, now we'll bring that up in class 2. Because what happened, is that Alan asking the question?
Yes.
Okay. In the second class, we're going to discuss what happened. As part of the effort to make the Jews into useful citizens, one of the plans was to make the Jews into farmers and agriculturalists. And there were all sorts of plans hatched that wanted, that came again from the big cities, not from the local communities, came down to transform the Jews into an agricultural class.
Mm-hmm.
Now we'll discuss that because that wasn't very successful for any number of reasons. But yes, that was part of the plan, and we're going to discuss that in class 2 and 3. Thank you for bringing that up, Alan. Why, did you have a great-grandparent who was a chicken farmer?
Well, my wife's family actually came to Canada in the early 1900s and started a farm. And I didn't know where they had this knowledge or experience to do so.
Right. Well, again, remember I said that Jewish history, especially as we're going to cover it, is full of themes that are going to come back with us. This theme about making Jews into something economically useful, into farmers, is going to come back all the way into the 1930s in communist Russia in the Birobizhin plan to make a Jewish homeland on the Chinese-Russian border, way the heck out in east part of Russia, make them into agriculturalists by establishing Jewish collective farms. So again, these themes are going to keep coming back in the various classes. But we'll discuss that starting in class 2, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have a question. How many people, how many Jewish people, the numbers that were killed in pogroms versus the number that served in the Russian army?
Okay, I have those numbers for you, but you're going to have to wait till around class 7.
Okay,
But I have those exact numbers for you.
okay.
It's a very good question.
It's his question, Jackson.
Okay, so yeah, I think it's class number 7. We're going to discuss the Second World War, which in Russia was called the Great Patriotic War, and the Holocaust.
Okay,
And I have those exact numbers for you.
okay.
That's World War I also.
And have those figures for World War I if you can,
No.
because it's pogroms versus Holocaust.
Yes, yes. I really could not find numbers for World War I.
Okay. Okay.
But I have numbers for World War II. Yes. Great question.
I have another
Our
question.
time is just, okay, our time is just about up, so this will be the last
I have a
we'll take.
question.
Thank you.
Okay, let somebody else ask.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes,
You mentioned Yiddish,
yes.
and that was forbidden. What languages were supposed to take the place of that?
German, Polish, and Russian.
And which was more favored by the Jews?
Well, none of them were at that point.
Okay.
Now, we'll see that this issue keeps coming up. Again, it's a theme that comes up over and over. That
Right.
various Russian tsars and after the 1917 revolution wanted Jews to give up Yiddish in favor of other languages. This was part of a whole process of wanting the Jews to assimilate into the Russian society.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that keeps you apart
Mm-hmm.
from majority society is language.
Right. Yes.
You have your own language, you have your own culture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's threatening to most majority cultures.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, one last question. Alan, do you want to ask?
Yes, I had to unmute myself. Yeah, the question was about education. Were the Jews open to the public education, or did they have their own yeshivas or whatever?
Yeah, well, all that was inherited from the time in Poland. They had their own yeshiva. And in the next week's class, we're going to discuss that. But one of the things that the Russian government, the reason that they opened public education to the Jews was they saw this as, again, as a vehicle to have the Jews assimilate. It wasn't just to educate, it was to assimilate. And we'll discuss that in classes 2 and 3 specifically.
Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer deserves a round of applause. Thank you for your help, Jennifer.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Erin. Thanks everyone for joining us. And happy Mother's Day to everyone who
Happy Mother's Day.
celebrates.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Thank you.